Good afternoon. My name's David Simpkins. I am General Manager within our Public Cloud and Managed Services practice within BT. And we've done a series of webinars around the cloud, its benefits and some of the key challenges. But today I'm with Rob Daniels, who heads up our security and our portfolio for security, to do a little bit of a deep dive on some of the security issues and challenges that we're seeing from our customers. But before I do that, I wanted to kind of just recap on some of the challenges that we are seeing as we're working with customers trying to implement a public cloud strategy. And the first one is actually, I said strategy, is all about understanding what their cloud strategy should be. We're seeing organisations actually evolve their cloud strategy. And it's interestingly, we saw two approaches which we've talked about before, which one was about a cloud first. And the challenge there for an organisation is, how do you implement a cloud-first strategy dealing with things like legacy, for example? You know, does your legacy environment work in the cloud? Can all your applications work? The second approach that we saw was around a more project base, where the organisation has said, actually, why don't we let the business units implement cloud? But then we're seeing real challenges around how do you scale, how do you share data, how do you ensure compliance across the business units, because at the end of the day, everybody is approaching it in a different matter. So the cloud strategy that we are seeing is more pragmatic, it's more intelligent. It is about mixing up the combination of using cloud where it's appropriate, but at the same time, understanding where you can't use it and deploying more of a hybrid strategy. So we're seeing a strategy evolve. One of the other key challenges that we are seeing is really understanding what can move into the cloud. Understanding what applications, how they will perform, and whether they will actually give you real benefits in the cloud. So these are some of the key challenges right at the start of your journey. As organisations move through the cloud, we're seeing other challenges, such as maintaining and having the right skill set. Having that skill set for cloud, and for cloud to be successful in the cloud, you need to combine cloud skills with IT, with security, as well as network. And actually having people that understand all that domain together and insight is quite difficult, because they're different skills. And once you've found somebody, or you have those skills in the organisation, keeping those can be really, really difficult. Once you've managed to get the right people and you understand where you're going, then we're seeing a real change in the way that you have to operate. And it's a real challenge. I've said before, and I joke with colleagues, that actually managing cloud is completely different from managing normal IT. Normal IT, you don't like change. You have ITIL processes that lock down change and make sure that everything is driven consistent and that you manage risk. Cloud is completely different. It's all about dynamics, scaling, shut things down, and actually, therefore, the way you manage it is completely different. So those are some of the key challenges that we've seen that actually probably well documented. But some of the things that I wanted to share with you today are unforeseen. And they are things like, actually, how do you change the culture of the skills and the people you've got? Developing cloud is a completely different mindset. Once you've got that mindset, how do you translate that into execution? And we're seeing organisations actually move to look at using defaults. And it's what, I've talked about it in previous webinars, where actually organisations who are starting on their cloud journey overuse defaults. And the overuse of defaults in the cloud means that you could end up routing stuff across the world to another zone, increasing your cost, absolutely killing your customer experience, and therefore may get bill shock, but also you may get poor customer experience. And we're still seeing that catch people out in their cloud journey. Earlier on, I talked about the need to change the way that you manage cloud. And actually, that seems to be a little bit of a shock for people on their cloud journey. And it is the one thing when it comes to implementing clouds is actually you can't use your traditional IT management model. That model just doesn't work, especially with the trend that we're seeing where organizations are managing multiple clouds. So actually having your ITIL processes and trying to bend those and manage cloud in a traditional way actually doesn't work. You don't see the benefit. Just because you keep, if you keep something up in the cloud, it's going to cost you just as much as keeping it in your data center. So actually having a new way of working with new processes is really important, and we're seeing that. And actually, for me, Rob, that new way also manifests itself in security, because security is one of the top concerns when organizations are moving to the cloud. And it's not because it's unsecure, but actually the way that you manage security changes in my mind.
Absolutely. So, David, that is absolutely true. And in fact, even if this conversation was solely about security, I would have given the same messages. The whole way you need to think about security completely changes when you move to the cloud. The need for flexibility, the need to understand where you need to put your security controls is that much more important. So that's what I want to talk to you today about. Yeah. So in the move to the cloud is underpinning most organizations' digital transformations. Many companies start their cloud journey with software as a service, or SaaS. And one very common use case is the migration to Office 365, with over 56% of all enterprises having already done so, including BT. Typical benefits are increased flexibility, you get better remote access, reduced IT service costs, and predictable monthly licensing. But while letting your employees connect to these new resources from anywhere is a big benefit, there are these significant security risk challenges. How do you know who is connecting, whether the device they're using is secure, and whether they are even authorized to be accessing the resources they're requesting? One way of doing this is to use direct connections, such as Microsoft ExpressRoute, to connect your cloud services to your current MPLS network. You can also use web proxy controls to manage unsanctioned SaaS services. However, this approach is not scalable. You can't add direct connections every time you want to launch a new cloud service. Additionally, when you increase the number of workloads in the cloud, you also increase the amount of app-to-app traffic, which you can't monitor with your traditional security setup. Web proxies are also not granular enough for today's requirements, where different users require different levels of access. The other big issue with the cloud is data loss and data leakage. This has been a big increase in the amount of sensitive information that's stored in the cloud. In fact, 21% of files stored there contain sensitive data. It's also very easy to accidentally share links to this information and then lose control of it. Cloud migration is also driving enterprise network redesign. Connectivity to your cloud services now must be as reliable and perform as well as your MPLS network. Your network must be able to dynamically change if performance drops or needs to add more bandwidth if usage increases. This is the reason that software-defined networking, or SDN, and software-defined wide area networking, such as SD-WAN, have become so popular. One of the key benefits of SD-WAN is that it creates secure connections to the cloud, and it gives you the ability to manage everything from a central console. Because SD-WAN understands the application layer, it can also optimize the connection to pick up the best route for that application. These two big developments of cloud migration and network redesign mean that your traditional perimeter network security is no longer good enough because your users and sites are connecting directly to your applications via the internet. Your network is no longer secure. Instead, you need to move to a zero trust model where you assume that your network has been breached. In this model, your security controls should focus on protecting your data and controlling access to that data through identity. To support this, your security controls must move closer to the endpoint and be applied consistently across your entire estate, no matter what network connection is being used. As you move more and more workloads to the cloud, it is very easy to lose visibility of your data. This means you need to deploy additional security controls. Network Function Virtualization, or NFV, helps to replicate your security controls across multiple clouds and to control app-to-app traffic by service chaining additional security layers such as application firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, and Cloud Access Security Broker, or CASB services. But as you increase security controls, it becomes impossible to manage everything manually. So your next challenge is to look at orchestration and automation to make sure that you don't create security gaps by forgetting to apply a policy. In general, the less you know about your network, the higher the risk and the more you need targeted security controls. Sounds intuitive. Your security policy must contain granular controls to link the application directly with the end user. Policies must consider the end user location, such as whether they are on a corporate network, a home network, or on public Wi-Fi, and what device they are using, whether it is a device that's being fully or partially managed by the enterprise, and also the type of application itself. Is it a trusted SaaS application? Or are your users trying to access sensitive financial transactions? Based on the application classification, the network must decide whether to allow direct access for trusted connections such as MPLS or SD-WAN, whether to send the traffic through a security web gateway if they are on a business-grade internet connection, or if the connection is suspicious, do we then send the traffic through a cloud security hub for further analysis? The network must be able to dynamically apply these policies regardless of whether the applications are hosted in public or private clouds. There can actually be security benefits to moving to clouds, because if you think about it, third-party cloud services actually have a great incentive in order to make sure that their services are secure. They also have the scale to be able to access these services and implement these services on a mass scale. However, many companies have not changed their own security architectures and controls, even though they have started using the cloud, which is why we see many press reports about data loss through unsecured cloud usage. In order to secure your hybrid environment, you need to address these 4 top challenges. 1. How do you establish trust in a zero-trust environment? 2. How do you ensure the security of the device connecting to your resources? 3. How do you ensure you remain compliant as sensitive data migrates to the cloud? And 4, how do you scale your security policy as your number of cloud services increases? Zero trust is a concept that was created by John Kindervag at Forrester. The key principle is that you should assume that your network has been breached, and you must verify anything and everything trying to connect to your systems before granting access. At the heart of zero trust is the requirement to understand who is trying to connect, that they are who they say they are, and that they are authorized to access the resources that they are requesting. Once you know who someone is, you then need to make sure you are only giving them access to the level of resources that they need to do their job, and nothing more. This is called the principle of least privilege. So what steps can you take to implement zero trust? First of all, you need to strengthen your identity and access control. A key point of this is cleaning up your Active Directory and deciding whether you are going to move to a service-based model, such as Azure Active Directory, or if you're going to use a more federated model, which connects your existing Active Directories to those that exist in the cloud. Think about how you're going to establish authorization. In other words, to make sure that the person is allowed to access to the requested apps or assets that they're asking for. Giving third parties like partners, suppliers, and customers access to your systems is also a big efficiency step. But you need to think about how you will apply your identity policies to these third parties as well. We also recommend using multi-factor authentication to give you a higher level security. And then the final area to think about is privileged access management, because admin rights are one of your most highly attractive assets for hackers. So keeping on top of your privileged user access is critical. As well as making sure you know the identity of the people that are requesting access to your resources, you need to ensure that they are connecting from devices that are compliant with your security policy. Endpoint attacks are responsible for up to half of all enterprise data breaches, and many organizations have bad endpoint security habits, including not installing anti-malware tools, using outdated software versions, and not training their employees in how to avoid phishing emails or about leaving endpoint devices unattended. Even if you're using antivirus, traditional AV solutions are signature-based and are very easy to bypass. Hackers very commonly test their new exploits against traditional common AV products, and they often implement obfuscation techniques to evade other more advanced types of detection. We are seeing a dramatic increase in using legitimate systems processes as well, such as PowerShell, in order to avoid detection. This is called living off the land. Endpoint detection and response, or EDR, solutions, such as CrowdStrike, work by bringing together next-generation antivirus with managed threat hunting and threat intelligence on the endpoint, analyzing suspicious endpoint events in a global cloud-based platform. Closely aligned to EDR is Enterprise Mobility Management, or EMM, which allows you to secure mobile devices and applications. Mobile device management, which many people will have already heard of, it's also known as MDM, was the first wave of device control. But employees were concerned about privacy and the potential loss of their personal data. However, some level of device control is essential to ensure security. EMM is a more comprehensive and acceptable way of remotely managing devices to control access to your corporate apps, internal websites, and also the data associated with them. It is also important to remember that security is not just about technology. People and processes are also critical. Do not forget about security training, which can help your users to identify phishing emails, and make sure you have clear policies about not leaving devices in cars or otherwise unattended. This goes back to what David was talking about, needing to think differently and to change the culture when it comes to moving to cloud.
Yeah.
One of the major security risks with cloud storage is how easy it is to lose your data. It's very easy to misconfigure storage buckets and to lose oversight of data by sharing links that are accessible by anyone, so you're effectively blind to where your data's gone. Before implementing a data loss prevention or DLP solution, you need to understand that DLP is a process, not just a product. Start by classifying what is your most sensitive data and where it is stored. This data classification policy will help you to apply an appropriate level of security to your data and lower your overall risk. Next, you need to secure your data in transit. Your cloud provider should make sure that your data is physically secured, but then you need to make sure that you're using secure connections, such as HTTPS, which conforms to the most current cryptography standards. Then make sure that you secure your data at rest with encryption, and use your identity and access management solution to ensure that only the intended users have access to the restricted data. You should also use application-level facilities, such as folder permissions, that you can set in OneDrive, Dropbox, or our own BT Cloud service, in order to make sure that you're also maintaining that granular level of access. As a final step, you can strengthen the granularity of data protection with a CASB, or that Cloud Access Security Broker. Web proxies only focus on inbound threats and website filtering, but a CASB can give you deep visibility and granular controls for cloud usage. It can also be used to scan data at rest in cloud services and enforce the policies across this data. As your cloud usage grows, automating security operations and processes is no longer a nice-to-have, it's a must-have. Not only is it becoming increasingly complex to manage multiple security tools and processes manually, it's inefficient and can introduce human error. Gartner came up with the term SOAR, Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. SOAR tools allow an organization to define incident analysis and response procedures in a digital workflow format, so that a range of machine-driven activities can be automated. In general, SOAR solutions have at least two capabilities. First, security orchestration. SOAR solutions integrate other cybersecurity and IT operations solutions so that they can work together and provide a comprehensive view of the environment. In many cases, the tools can also correlate internal data with information provided by external threat intelligence sources. This integration and correlation allows investigators to quickly drill down through the alerts coming from various cybersecurity tools in order to find and address the root causes of the current problem. Second, security automation. SOAR solutions can automatically take actions without needing manual intervention. For example, security automation can provision or deprovision new users. They can query logs, or they can conduct IP scoring, all without the involvement from a human. And this combination of security automation and orchestration means that you can automate tasks that span across several different tools and help to free up your security analysts to work on their most pressing issues. Tools such as Resilient from IBM are able to put together your security tools in a single management platform to automate security policy and deployment. In a zero trust framework, which assumes a state of breach, what is most important is continuous monitoring. Globally, dwell time, which is the average number of days between network intrusion and the detection of that intrusion, according to FireEye, is about 99 days. To work out what you need to look for, first define your business threats and risks and implement a framework such as ATT&CK, which was developed by the MITRE Corporation and released publicly in 2015. ATT&CK stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. The difference between ATT&CK and many other frameworks is that it focuses on the behavior of the attackers and their attacks, rather than looking for known bad signatures which can easily be modified. This allows a broadened scope of detection that can't easily be changed. By identifying which techniques are active in your industry, for example from previously identified malware, or by reviewing the tactics, techniques, and procedures employed by specific threat actors you're interested in, you can learn how your current security controls protect against these techniques and whether you have gaps. Using the ATT&CK framework, you can begin to categorize the threats and prioritize them, as well as turn them into use cases, which are applicable to you as a business. This allows you to deploy a SIEM tool, which allows access to these environments, works across these environments, and that can be integrated into your orchestration platform too. Finally, once you have bedded down your security monitoring and playbooks, you can then look to improve your detection rates by implementing user and entity behavior analysis such as UEBA or other machine learning techniques. To summarize, what we've already heard from David today, that there's already a number of, while there may be a number of opportunities and challenges, for productivity increases and flexibility that comes with working with the cloud, which we've heard in previous webinars, there are a number of challenges. Those challenges exist across the implementation and the management of the network, but particularly create challenges in terms of managing security. In summary, the rapid move to cloud, and also as well as mobile adoption, have massively increased the threat surface as more and more devices try to connect to your company resources. In the old model, a perimeter-based security is no longer applicable, just as many other network ITIL models are no longer applicable when it comes to managing the network. Instead, you need to radically rethink your security strategy and implement controls that focus on your data and how you control access to that data. These security controls should be based on the threats that you have identified through the implementation of frameworks such as ATT&CK, so that you can clearly link your security spend to reduction of risk in your organization. Thank you.
So Rob, thank you very much for that. I feel like I've learned quite a bit about security rather than just saying it's a key challenge and talking about shared responsibility models.
Of course.
Which seem to be the flavour of the month at certain points. Got a number of questions.
Sure.
First one I've got is, how does the move to cloud impact customers as subject to strict compliant regimes, and what can they do about it?
So absolutely, compliance is one of the key concerns of any CISO. If you think about it, a security breach is often becomes public because a company has fallen foul of some sort of a compliance regime. There's certainly been a lot of conversation around that when it comes to GDPR, HIPAA, and other types of compliance regimes. Mm-hmm. The challenge with moving to the cloud is that most compliance regimes do often focus on how companies manage and protect data, particularly customer data. When it comes to cloud, that data could be anywhere. So you need to, that's why it's much more important to make sure that you are implementing solutions such as data loss prevention or cloud access security brokers, which are very much focused on monitoring data security. Yep. But in addition, you need to make sure that you are doing that constant monitoring, using tools such as vulnerability tools, analysis tools that can potentially look for breaches in your security architecture, SIEM tools, which can be used to correlate different events across your network to see if there may be someone that might have accidentally compromised your data. And then finally, it's training. Make sure that your employees understand that they need to take careful steps in terms of how they use their data and that they do not use it carelessly.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with that last point.
Yes.
Actually, it's not just the technical solution. Actually, it's the cultural and the operational
Absolutely.
surround around that. Thank you. Okay, I have another question here. You talked about zero trust model, which I find interesting, actually. Does that work for everyone?
You know, it actually does. It sounds a bit scary. It sounds mistrustful.
It does. Actually,
it does, actually. But actually, if you think about it, while zero trust is a model, and it's a security model, it's also a cultural and mindset. It's not saying that everybody is bad, but it's recognizing that because people can be, even the most trusted individual can be compromised, even through blackmail, or by accidentally losing their credentials. It's better just to assume that everyone is untrusted. Make sure that you have the right controls in place to ensure that people are being properly vetted, authorized, and that they're also being given access only to that data that they should be allowed. That is a way to not necessarily eliminate risk, but certainly to minimize it.
Yeah. So it's very much a worst case, plan for the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
But actually, it will be okay. Yeah, excellent. Okay. So time for another question. What proportion of customers have actually started implementing security orchestration?
So that's quite a challenge. I would say that security orchestration is more of an emerging field. It's emerging alongside the orchestration that's required for SD-WAN networks. We are seeing more and more customers ask for these capabilities. We're seeing many more companies out there developing those capabilities. And you can tell that these capabilities are becoming more secure because we are seeing more acquisitions in that space. What we are seeing in particular are some of the more traditional SIEM vendors acquiring companies that have developed these SOAR capabilities and integrating them together.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob. Well, I think we're almost out of actual time. So I think that was really interesting. I think a couple of themes that came out for me today are around, it's not just about the technical solution, but actually the operations and the cultural awareness. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So we have no more questions. Thank you very much for your time. And if you want to find out more information, please visit our BTGS website or email myself or Rob on our BT websites. Thank you very much.